I've often wanted to do this, and I'm not going to do it today either, but I've been curious how many believers get a little bit Grinchish in their hearts about Christmas. I do. I sort of waffle between the Grinch and Ebenezer Scrooge at times. In October, when I start to hear Christmas music, and in July, when Hallmark starts their new series of Christmas love stories, I can't remember who sent this to me, but somebody sent me a thing at maybe it was Dawn about the Grinch didn't actually hate Christmas; it was people that got on his nerves, and it help me. Not any of us, but some of our sort of weird stuff that we put around Christmas that hurts it, I believe. When I say that, we put our Christmas tree up yesterday. I'm all in on celebrating the birth of Christ. There's only one event in all of human history that I think is more significant than the birth of Christ. We'll get to that in a few months, but that celebration can be sidetracked. Our society and our capitalism and consumerism and all the Hallmarkism, all this degrade Christmas. But Christmas music, I love Christmas music, and I hate Christmas music. I like what we do. I remember as a kid, you used to actually be able to go to the gymnasium before school when I was in grade school, and we would sing Away in the Manger and Silent Night. But we also would sing Jingle Bells, and I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, and all those inane songs. And so there's this weird tension, I think, in Christmas. If you're wanting to celebrate Christ and wanting to have fun, and I think exchanging gifts and putting up trees and lights is all part of that passion for celebrating Jesus, that we go all out, and that's okay, as long as we don't lose track of what we're going all out for. What it is that if it becomes about how many lights you have, or how many gifts you have, or how many movies you see, or whatever, then we've lost ground. Christmas songs, I didn't know this. You guys read the 12 Days of Christmas? I actually love the song just because it takes so long. But this I didn't know. Because I looked it up. I put this on here, and I was like, well, I should at least look up what these things are about if they mean anything. And I suspected they didn't, but they did. I mean, what can a partridge in a pear tree represent other than, and this, you're going to like this. A mother partridge, when in the presence of a predator, is willing to risk injury or death to save her chicks. So the partridge, who actually does live in pear trees, was put in this song because of its willingness to sacrifice its life for its children. I thought, well, I didn't know that. The second day, 2 turtle doves represent the Old and New Testaments. The third day, 3 French hens stands for the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I don't know why they had to be French hens for that. It could have been any, I think. But there they are. I think phonetics is it. But the 4 calling birds stand for the 4 Gospels. The 5 golden rings represent the first 5 books of the Bible. The 6 geese a laying. I had a hard time singing that one. I don't know. I've never actually seen a bird lay an egg, but But it actually represents the 6 days of creation, which makes some sense, right? The birds laying eggs, creation. They actually thought about this stuff. The 7 swans that are swimming represent the gifts of prophecy. So the gifts that we taught on earlier, they saw that we were going to do that and put it in. The 8 days, the 8th day, 8 maids a milking represent the 8 beatitudes. 9 ladies dancing represent the 9 fruits of the Spirit. The 10 days, Lords a leaping, represents the 10 commandments. 11 pipers piping, the 11 apostles. And then the 12 drummers drumming, represents the apostles' creeds and the doctrinal points that we all Christians believe. So I didn't know that that awful song actually is presenting God. Now, here's why I put it in there now once I learned that, is it does a horrible job of it. Because you can sing through all that and have absolutely no idea that it means those things, because I'm 53 now, and I far and found out yesterday that there's actual spiritual meaning to that song. The first day of Christmas, unlike the song, is talked about right here in Luke chapter 2, 1 and 3. It says, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while this guy was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. It continues on. So Joseph went also up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to the firstborn son. We've all heard that, and we know the story continues on, and there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks. And then an angel of the Lord appeared to them. We've heard that, and it ends up here with a manger scene, and we have a manger set up over there, and we've got a couple of them around our house, and mangers are good. Baby Jesus out in the middle of who knows where. And there's always a palm tree in these pictures. I don't really know why. But here's the problem. And this is a cute picture. I was actually just looking up baby Santa, and I don't know if that actually was Santa, but that's a pretty cute picture. I only got a couple of paws, but there should have been more. See, there we go. I like Santa. But Santa gets in the way. More than the Easter Bunny. If those two ever get together, Santa's got it way over on the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny's sort of trivial. Santa's a heavy hitter. Everywhere you go, this time of year, Santa. He's in our songs. He's at our malls. He's on our Christmas cards. We got a Christmas card a couple of years ago that had a verse on the inside and Santa on the outside. It was really confusing to me because I didn't know what kind of message they had for me. But that Santa overlays stuff, and this isn't a sermon about Santa, but it's a sermon about how the manger story, the first day of Christmas story, I think gets lost because we actually start too late in history for the first day of Christmas. I think John, the Gospel, gets the first day of Christmas more right. And that is not to criticize the other three Gospels. But this is what John says. It says, in the beginning was the Word. And it has this little word there, word, that's a little confusing to us. But about 14 verses later, it says the name Word again. The Word, right there, became flesh and made its dwelling among us. And this is how we know at the beginning of John what that Word is because the Word became flesh. And we know that that flesh was Jesus. And we're doing the pictures here just to help us understand, because of the importance of these verses, that when this Word became flesh, that means that Word up there also became flesh. That Jesus is who John 1 is talking about. And we've done this before. I've talked about this in past sermons. But you have to understand it in terms of all of creation history. You have to understand the centrality of Jesus and that Jesus didn't come into existence at the manger. That was not Jesus' first day on the job. John 1 talks about it. So this gap between John 1:1 and John 1:14 is what we need to understand. So we're going to work on it just a little bit. It says that Word, remember we were talking about the Word, was with God, and that Word was God. So we've got Jesus was with God. This gets confusing. And Jesus was God. And that sounds sort of hard to understand. And it is. And I'm not going to talk about the Trinity today. It's hard to talk about. It's real. It's scriptural. and it's confusing to us. But right here, what we know is in the very beginning, before anything happened, you've got the Word, and that Word is Jesus, and Jesus was with God, because there's three persons of God, and Jesus was God. Now, just only semi going to say, does that make sense? Because it doesn't. But do you understand what I'm saying? That Jesus Christ, before anything happened, was God. So we're going to continue on. We leave a verse out here. Don't worry about that. It's legal. It says, through him all things were made, and nothing was made that has been made without him. I left that out. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. There's a lot of maids in there, but this is what it means, that through Jesus all things were made. So if you just take a minute and put your hand on the chair underneath you, just real quick. This is the interactive part. Go ahead. Put your hand on your chair, and you're not doing it. Come on. That chair, although it has a made in China a stamp on it, that chair is made out of stuff that was made by Jesus. And the clothes you're wearing and the clicker you're using, all things were made by Jesus. We have to understand that. And nothing was ever made without him. So everything made by Jesus Christ. Why does this matter? This is not to diminish the Father or confuse us about the Holy Spirit, but what John's trying to get us to understand is the power and the person of Jesus. So there he is. Jesus made everything. So we continue and look here. Jesus said this. Guys were giving him a hard time, trying to figure out who he was. And he talked about knowing Abraham. And the guys said to him, you're not yet 50. And actually, he wasn't quite a little over 30. But they said, you're not even 50, and you've seen Abraham. And Jesus says back to him, I tell you, before Abraham was, I am. Remember what God said to Moses? Who am I going to say sent me? And God didn't play any games. He just said, tell him I am sent you. Jesus is intentionally connecting himself there. That he's not just a man. He became a man. But he's the God of the universe. We have to understand that. So it continues on here in John 1:4. In him, who, Jesus, was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. This is what when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Colossians 1:17, if there aren't very many verses that you remember, but you want to try to remember the person of Jesus and who he is in the created order, remember Colossians 1:17. It says this, the Son is the image of the invisible God. Jesus Christ is the image of the invisible God. That's the Jesus that's here on planet Earth while he's here, is the image of the invisible God. The firstborn over all creation. In him, things were created. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. Whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. We have to understand this. If it's not for Jesus Christ, you stop existing. I stop existing. The planet stops turning. The sun stops burning. Everything is held together by the power of Jesus Christ. Jesus isn't a little cut and paste image in a manger somewhere. He's the God of the universe who ultimately, for a short period of time, becomes a human being. Luke 2, we'll go back to for just a second. Afraid, I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. That's the beginning of the gospel story of Jesus Christ on earth. That's the start of our experience with Jesus, and it starts as a baby. It's unfortunate in only one way. We limit him to that baby. We limit him to being a human being. We limit him to being a guy who lived for 30 some years and died on a cross, and we're grateful for that, but we see the vulnerability of the cross and we see the vulnerability of the manger, and we forget that that's the God of the universe that we have the opportunity to see so we can know him. Christmas is a celebration of the ability to know the God of the universe. The invisible God that everybody says, if I could just meet him, I would make my decision. You can meet him. It's the person of Jesus Christ. But the person of Jesus Christ isn't just a person. He's God. The person of Jesus Christ isn't a baby. He's not a teenager. He's not an adult. He's not just the guy who gave the Sermon on the Mount. He's God. And if we don't get that, then Christmas is just a holiday. Christmas is a time when some religious events might have taken place. Christmas is something that we celebrate because it is fun, and we like to sing the songs, and Away in a Manger makes us feel happy, and Silent Night's kind of, has that melancholy, oh, it was such a beautiful thing, and we forget God took on flesh. How crazy is that? God, the creator of everything, that sustains everything, took on flesh. God that holds all flesh together became flesh. Crazy. Now here's the problem. Because we don't remember that, we don't share that. And when people wonder about Christmas and the Grinches show up and the Ebenezer Scrooges show up, and we get in arguments about whether you should say Merry Christmas or not, or whether the cup should be red or green, or what can you say when who cares? We need to tell people that God took on flesh and dwelled among us. The first day of Christmas, you know what Christmas is? Christ's Mass. Mass is a celebration. Mass is a coming together to celebrate an event. So Christmas is the celebration of Christ. Don't let anybody. And don't let the manger steal that. It's a subtle thing, but I think that we forget. And we start to have a little bit of us that maybe even feels sorry for Jesus. A little baby in a manger. A man dying on a cross. Babies and men dying on crosses are pictures of vulnerability. The most powerful being in the universe that called the universe into being is who we're talking about. And the first day of Christmas is the first day of creation, because that's the creation that celebrates the Creator. We're simply a little piece of that. We're one person amongst billions that get to join in with the creation. Remember, it talks about the creation groaning under the weight of sin. The creation also celebrates under the glory of Jesus Christ. It celebrates, and we get to participate in that because we're experiencing the birth of God for a short time into our world, into our lives. We have to remember that the first day of Christmas, God created the heavens and the earth. And after that, it's all God's story. And we get to join in on that.